Welcome, everyone, to the Master B2B Fireside Chat series. My name is Brian Beck. I'm your host today. We have a fantastic session. We're talking about decision-making in B2B e-commerce. I have a wonderful group with me here today, starting with Brian Gillespie. Brian is the VP of Product at HCL Software. Brian, you want to say hello? You're my co-host today. I'm excited to be here with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everybody. Brian Gillespie. I've been in the space for 25 plus years now, so looking forward to this conversation.
Fantastic. Awesome. And we also have Adrienne "The Hammer" Hartman, SVP of Marketing at JJ Keller and Company. Adrienne's the hammer because she participated in several of our Master B2B debates over the years. Adrienne, fantastic to be here. Tell us what JJ Keller does and what you do there.
At JJ Keller, we protect people and the businesses they run, and we are largely a safety and regulatory compliance company. We are a manufacturer of our own physical products. We have technology solutions, and we have managed services. And we are our own distributor in addition to working through other distributors as well. And at JJ Keller, I lead the overall marketing area, which includes the e-commerce department as well.
Fantastic. And probably have a few decisions to make, I'd imagine.
A few.
Yep. You manage a lot there. So fantastic, Adrienne. Great to have you here. Nathan Schatz, Head of IT Product Management at SHI. Nathan, welcome. Longtime industry veteran. You and I have known each other for quite some time as well. Tell us what SHI does and what you do there.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. So SHI is a global IT solutions provider. We help businesses, government, education sectors with technology, procurement, management, and their managed services as well. So we do everything from hardware, software resell to licensing, cybersecurity, cloud services, AI solutions. Really just making sure that we're acting as a partner to simplify all the IT complexity that's out there. Awesome. So I am I'm IT product management. So recently moved roles out of e-commerce, but still closely tied into our e-commerce strategy at SHI. Longtime veteran of the B2B e-com world.
Yes, we have a star panel here. The three of you, gosh, have so much experience. And so, we're going to talk about decision making today. And with the world has changed so much over the last 12, 18 months with the introduction of AI, tools that's causing confusion and everything from front-end marketing to technology platforms and how do you invest. And then, of course, there's more pressure than ever to really digitally transform your business in the world of B2B. And so this, how you prioritize, how you make decisions, and how you do so nimbly in a world where, Amazon Business has grown to $80 billion and putting, sort of both opportunities but also pressures on traditional businesses, customers, B2B customers now using new channels like Amazon more so than ever and setting the bar high for everyone here. And so we're going to talk today in this fireside chat about how businesses are adapting and adopting maybe some new decision-making models for e-commerce. So let's start by talking a little bit about the world of decisions, right, that companies have to deal with. And Brian, I'll go to you first as our, my co-host and industry expert here. You guys at HCL work with just a ton of companies and mid-sized to large companies who are trying to make decisions. What have you seen? I mean, you focus a lot on the technology side of this and the foundational side, but what have you seen from your experience in the past year?
Yeah, coming out of, I've done implementation, I've done across the board. So I've seen both sides of the fence. And, really from a high level, in my opinion, it comes down to two main areas that are just tugging and pulling all the time. And that is making the right decision between the back-end systems and the complexities that you have around them and the experience, the buyer experience, right? So which comes first? One of the examples I like to use is you may have to improve your inventory capabilities in the back end. And great, but you want to expose that on the front end. Well, if you don't take care of the complexities and the challenges you have around inventory in the back end, you're only exposing that on the front end if you bring that forward first. So how do you balance those decisions?
Sure, that's a big one. So Adrienne, I'll go to you next. The world you manage both, and you come from technology, right? I mean, you were a developer when you started your career.
Yep.
And you've seen, now you have a purview over marketing, e-commerce, and some other areas. You've managed sales. How do you think through what does the world of decisions look like for you? As Brian was saying, you got technology foundation decisions to make. We'll talk about the customer in a minute and how you bring in, thoughts around that, but and keep their voice in the front. But what does the world of decisions look like for you as you go into 2026, and how has AI impacted that decision field?
Yeah, I would say AI is definitely impacting that. And there are a lot of moving parts because it's not just everything in one basket. So it's not as though we're saying, hey, we're investing everything in our jjkeller.com platform. In addition to that, we've got to be balancing that with, for example, our store that we run on Amazon,
Right.
our procurement infrastructure, our e-procurement infrastructure, and being there where our customers want us to be, making sure that EDI is running smoothly for the customers who want that up and running, which is, yes, still very much a thing. And of course, then there's all of the acquisition methods that we're doing as well. So it's how we're managing all of the spend to drive the interest, both for existing customers to get them to come back, but there's a lot of acquisition work at play as well.
Well, and AI is changing that game too, right?
Oh,
With
yes.
the agentic engine optimization or answer engine. I don't know, so many names for these things now. SEO being changed, and so your very relevance, to your end buyers being changed. So do you have new areas of investment now you're being confronted with even on the marketing side? I'd imagine. Nathan, what about you from your perspective at SHI? What are you seeing? What is your kind of world of decisions look like?
Yeah, it's very similar to what Adrienne's been talking about as well, right? Where we've really just got to make the decisions based around data complexities, right? Our backend systems and how to be able to modernize those pieces, right? Because it's the experience that the customer has. How do we want to make sure, a long time ago we went from B2B was just getting up to speed with B2C, right? Can we have the same kind of features that a B2C system has or a B2C platform has? And now it just becomes a little bit more of, how do we start to evolve into that space, right? Because from a B2B perspective, there are so many things and items that really need to take precedence, right? There's a relationship with the customer and their experiences. There's the overall online experience. Then you get into the EDIs and B2B and different ways to be able to do things. And so how do we be able to really start to think about what the space looks like, what our customers are doing, and then just from a back end perspective, do all of those things match up to be able to drive that experience, right? Because I think that's where, being able to kind of modernize that back end, being able to think about it from a data perspective, but also just the back end systems, right? Is everything aligning to what needs to be able to happen in order to get to that better experience, really?
And I'll throw in one more thing, Brian, and that
Not
is
good.
you have to look who's coming into the workplace right now. You look at the Gen Zs, right? Gen Zs have no idea what it's like to not have a digital device in their hand. So their expectations of how they want to buy and procure goods
Yeah.
from a B2B perspective is vastly different than, I'll say it, I'm a Gen X, right? So, how are you meeting those expectations of the buying experience? And to Nathan's point and Adrienne, it's more than just your digital channel. I can tell you that the Gen Zs don't want to pick up a phone or handle a
Right.
manual quote anymore. They want,
Yeah.
they want a seamless experience, digital, offline, online, across the board. So it's not just an experience from a graphics or from a UX perspective. It's an experience from the back end system as well.
Well, then you
But
go.
I think,
Yeah, go ahead, Nathan, please.
but I think, Brian, it's weird, right? Because you've got that ability, to your point, right? Gen Zers, they want to get through things really quickly. But then I think in Adrienne's space as well, and even ours, like we work with all sorts of different types of customers, right? So we are still building a ton of quotes. We're still working through it that way. So we've got to figure out a way to balance the different types. And so do they want things through a phone? Do they, is clicking okay, right? How many clicks to get to the middle of the Tootsie Roll Pop kind of thing, right? And it's like trying to figure those things out because you've got to balance both of those sets of customers pretty equally, but you may have to lean one way, lean a little bit more into that Gen X kind of, that kind of phase.
I'm so glad you raised that, Nathan, because that is an inherent tension in B2B. You've got this traditional customer cohort that wants to order in a traditional way. Use a fax machine. What the heck is that? Or whatever, like these, and then you've got this new group, I think about my 14-year-old sitting all day long on ChatGPT, is that going to replace the buying agent so the front end's not even necessary? So you've got these two like dramatically different groups that you're serving. How the heck do you decide on where to focus? Do you I mean, and this gets into, how do you focus on the customer and get the customer's voice in all this? But Nathan, how do you think about that? I mean, you just described a tension in a sense, right?
Yeah. I mean, I go back personally within what kind of different kind of customer and personas and types do we have that allows us, and then how do we have to match those, right? So it's so much of it's in the data. So much of it is in really trying to understand who's coming to the site to be able to buy. And this goes back to my Dell days, my NI days, right?
Yeah.
It really goes back to all these where really trying to understand who that customer is and how they have evolved and what their different types of personas are. And then how do we try to match some of those, right? And it can go all the way up to AI agents at the same way. But, I think for me, it's always going to be, what's the customer space look like? What's their personas? Who's coming in? And how do we want to deal with what they need?
And I think
Go ahead, Adrienne, please.
I was just going to say that's how we try to look at it too. Really thinking about it as being channel agnostic. That if our customer wants to pick up the phone and talk to a rep, we want to provide that to them. We know that they don't want to have this fully automated system in terms of calling. The people who call in want a person, so we want to provide them with that person here. And then there are, I think the Amazonification of it all is there are definitely consumers who want this always on. They want every update. They want to know where their package is, how many stops away their package is. Having information available to them without overloading the people who are maybe more passive in that overall journey on that, so that it's an option, but we're not shoving it down everyone's throat.
Do you guys think decisions have to be, quick now? I mean, B2B has traditionally been, hey, business case everything to death, right? You got a very conservative decision making and let other people, at the most be a fast follower, right? What are your thoughts on that? And you guys want to weigh in on that? Or do decisions have to be fast now around these issues?
Some decisions have to be fast, but
which ones?
I think some of the decisions that have to be fast are the things that have less of a potential catastrophic impact or less effort and work to put in. So the ability, for example, we've got some A/B testing tools that we're constantly running at least 7, sometimes 10 different tests on the site, presenting different options, different ways that someone might interact with our content and different ways of finding the right information. Those things, we have to be really nimble, and we need to be able to have a way that we can really quickly put some new information or even a new product or service offering up really, really fast. But when we're talking about like a fundamental change, a customer data platform, for example, you really want to take your time and make sure you're finding the right CDP that works for the overall organization and is going to provide the most business value. So a much longer decision time frame there.
Yeah,
let's go ahead, Nathan.
I think the nimble part of that Adrienne talks about is spot on, right?
Good.
There are pieces in website testing, right? Failing fast can be okay, right? Like you really want to be, it's like you can run tests and how those do. And if they fail, you learn, and then you go and iterate on top of that, right? And then when they succeed, you're great because you can go out and do that. The longer decisions, the bigger decisions, you need to be a little bit more thoughtful, right? You can business case them, right? But I think in the same sense too, we're also dealing with the ability to make the decision, go forward with that decision, and have a team that can actually execute it from a development standpoint, from a software standpoint, from an engineering is really what I mean. But I think it's also trying to make sure that you can balance all of the other work that's having to take place, right? Because from a B2B standpoint, it's not just the website, it's data and it's fundamentals, and you've got engineering teams that you've got to be able to fit in what you need, right? In an ideal world, you have your own engineering team from an e-commerce standpoint, but a lot of them don't. Right. And so then how do you kind of fit some of those things in within just their kind of development life cycle?
And Brian, you guys are on the software technology side. I mean, you think about failing fast. Is that something that is, necessary? And you guys probably embrace that, I'd imagine, as a tech company, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit easier for us to fail fast. I will go back to just from a corporation standpoint. I think you have to look at, do you make quick decisions and fail fast? Is really based on, are you going to miss a market opportunity, or is there a key window of opportunity that you need to make these decisions quickly? To Adrienne's point, you want to get a product out there as soon as humanly possible, because there is a outside influence that's making the decisions for buyers, that they need to make that decision quickly. So Adrienne does as well. On the software side, we want to fail fast. We don't have the complexities that B2B organizations have, where I can get a new release out relatively quickly, especially in a SaaS environment. So I'd much rather fail quick, get my teams on it, fix it in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, rather than stewing on decisions for weeks on end.
Is there a cost to making bad decisions? I mean, and if you think about it, I suppose there is, right? But in a fail fast environment, I mean, how do you kind of draw the line on where you make that distinction? Adrienne, you were talking about, kind of testing tools, which is great. Multivariate test, you can change elements on the website, things like that, or in a composable type environment, perhaps you can launch new features, in your platform without massive risk. But how do you think about, kind of the costs? Does that come into your decision making, the cost of failing?
Absolutely. And depending on some of those decisions, for example, deciding to leave off some functionality when launching a new web platform. And if it takes a while of reading data to realize that, hey, this is a problem, and if it's not something you can quickly enable and spin up, and now you've got to have a cycle and a process to get that re-enabled, there can be significant lost opportunity there.
And a lot of times, in Adrienne's point, because I know the exact use case you're talking about, and that is sometimes it's an emotional decision or a psychological impact, not necessarily a technology impact. Yeah. So making a change that impacts the way people think and their buying patterns, that is also an area you got to either really do a deep dive analysis on or fail fast. And in Adrienne's, I hate to pick on Adrienne here a little bit. Yeah, there was a piece of functionality that was left off the new site. And
intentionally.
I'm sorry?
Intentionally.
That's right. Yeah, just so for the audience out there, it wasn't missed. It was intentionally left off, but it had a huge psychological and emotional impact to the buyers, and it had an impact on the overall revenue.
Interesting. But you intentionally left it off for the sake of what, Adrienne? Speed to get it to market? Is that why you?
No. We believed from the data that we read in advance that it wasn't needed, and
okay.
Turns out data lies sometimes.
Yeah, interesting. What'd you learn from that?
Data lies.
Well, I guess the better question is, how would you? In terms of decisioning, did that change your decision, the way you go about making decisions in the future, or, do you trust the data, or I mean, what does it put that in question? I mean, what do you do differently? I guess.
Yeah, there's the data can only be trusted so far. Obviously, you can say that the numbers will say anything you want to hear if you torture them enough.
Right.
But there's perhaps a little bit more gut aspects coming into it as well, and giving that maybe more value.
Interesting. Yeah, Nathan, you're nodding. You agree? Have you had a similar experience?
Oh, I mean, for sure, right? I think we all have in some capacity, and it really goes back, and Adrienne said it, right? There's an aspect of knowing and understanding the data, what the data tells you. There's also, I think, especially from an e-com perspective, right? From an e-commerce perspective, there's a lot of times you got to trust your gut, right? Mm-hmm. Kind of what it's telling you. And it's hard, right? Because like that dichotomy of trusting your gut over the data is a hard thing to kind of balance sometimes. And sometimes you're spot on, right? And sometimes you go and you make a bad decision, right? And so I think it's the ability to turn that decision into reality, meaning like, okay, quickly, how quickly can we spin this up? Yeah. And I think, either Brian or Adrienne said it, like there's a lot of our business has been with customers who have been with us for a very long time.
Yeah.
Right. And, the places I've worked have been around for over 30 years. And sometimes you've got customers who've been there for a long time, and you've got the complexity of them and the way that they perceive everything. You also have to balance sometimes the people who have been around your organization for a really long time and kind of how they think through things and how well they know.
Change
And
management,
they're going to
yep.
go back and say, 7 years ago, we tried this and it didn't work. Well, I hear you. Right. But let's try it again. And so there's a lot of that balance that you've got to do, especially in the B2B space, I feel, because you've got complexity, you've got longevity. And you really have to be able to kind of figure out how all of that's going to work and kind of come together.
Back in my day. Yep. I got you. We're in B2B,
Yeah.
folks.
Right.
Right.
I mean, think about it, right? Think about all the industry events we go to, and there's a lot of people who've been around this space for a very long time versus versus the consumer world where it's
Yep.
that cycles through really quickly.
I joke, Nathan, the B2B industry makes me feel very young.
Sometimes, yeah.
Keeps me young. So let's talk about that for a second, guys. The organization. Sometimes in B2B, you get this. Hey, you need to business case everything to death. Like, really, we have to prove e-commerce. We have to prove that people are buying this way, or, really, we're in 2026. Do we really need to prove those things? So, have you guys been in a situation where you've had this sort of thing that is right, and you've had to align the organization around it, and maybe it's led to some delays? How do you deal with that? I mean, do you have any specific examples you could give, or how you've aligned the organization around something is right, but maybe is maybe one of those bigger initiatives?
Go ahead, Adrienne.
There's a large initiative that we are working on the case for right now, which really was around setting up the vision for the future of how we will market to our customers. And once we were able to get that vision conveyed and expressed to the very top level, they were able to see the value in this. And without an extremely extensive business case, we're able to say that this is something we need to move forward with to really modernize the overall approach.
And Brian, what have you seen? You guys work with so many different companies. I mean, what are the key folks that need to align on these things? I mean, a lot of what you guys do is, when you're bringing a new platform in, I mean, that can be a significant investment, right, for these companies. What are the keys to getting the alignment and making the decision?
It is. It's changed drastically in the last 5 years too. 5 years ago, the process was a lot longer. You would do custom demos. You would make people feel happy. You would, absorb their data, et cetera, et cetera. Now, with generative AI, you can do mock-ups and walkthroughs, and you can generate applications so much faster that you can improve out very quickly through through modeling, through AI engines. So what we have seen is it's more around not getting consensus. It's around getting people to follow. And you lead with this idea, you lead with this concept, and I see Nathan nodding his head. You have to come in with that idea. You have to have followers, because if you're going to rely on consensus, that's what draws it out. So come in with an idea, come in with the concept, prove it through data analysis. And I know, Adrienne, data does lie sometimes, but through workshops, and bring that to the table. Don't get consensus, get people to follow, and that moves a lot faster.
Nathan, what do you have? You're nodding. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's just, buy-in is really hard to get through a lot of people. Right. So I think there's an aspect of finding that, we're all going to put the business case together. We're all going to say that a new website or a new platform is going to bring this many more visitors, this increase in revenue. Like we've all done that. But I think there's an aspect now of, finding that one person within the exec team or your boss or whoever it may be, and say, okay, as long as they're bought in, it helps matters. It's not going to solve it. I think then, to Brian's point, starting to be able to do things faster in terms of, that ability to bring in demos and but bringing in something to say, this is what it's going to look like,
And
gives people, hell, it's even in my world today, it still helps. I was asking a partner today, like, what's it going to look like so that I can actually think about how to do it, or what data is needed, or how it's going to flow through. So I think to Brian's point is spot on in terms of, a lot of that is helpful through visuals, through how to do things a little bit differently. Because I think everybody has some kind of visual in their mind. And if you can lock into that, I think the business case helps, but then taking that business case into something that you can stand behind and then go and build it quickly is helpful.
And normally I don't say the A word too much, but I'm gonna go back to how Amazon does it kicks off their projects. Do you guys know how Amazon kicks off all their projects? They write the
They had a PowerPoint, I'll tell you that.
They write the press release first. So they actually have the end goal, the press release written before they even kick off the project. That's how they're getting the buy-in. They're saying, wow, we can do this in 6 months or 12 months. Absolutely. Just get out of my way.
It is about storytelling, isn't it, Brian? It really is. That's what you guys are saying. What about you, Adrienne? Has that been your experience as well?
Yeah, it's really helping people see that final vision, and sometimes not getting mired in the weeds of the in between, but that this is what it can look like. I definitely find I've been in the industry a long time too. I'm not having to justify the e-commerce spend and projects the same way that I used to have to.
Sure.
It used to really be much more of the math exercise that Nathan was saying, and that really has changed. Now everyone knows and understands. Yeah, you have to have this. You have to be investing here. Great.
No, that's really good. So let's talk for a minute about this whole nature, the technology foundation, and back in my day. We wanted to make changes, to the website or to adjust or add features or whatever. It was a serious, even minor stuff was a serious endeavor. It was a lot of work, time, and to your point, Adrienne, 10 years ago or whenever, it was a more of an IT project and such. Now this whole notion of composable commerce, Brian, I want you to talk about that, because the notion of that is that companies can become more flexible, right? With all these front end experiences with testing, et cetera. What do we have to think about? Like, does that enable faster decision making, do you think, and enable companies like Adrienne's describing, where she can, test things and then implement them quickly?
Yeah, what I think it allows you to do is compartmentalize. I'm horrible sometimes, but
that's right. That's a good word.
It's having the ability to say, I want to make this change just to the experience layer. Has no impact on my back end systems. In the past, when everything was a monolith, that one change to the front end experience, you had to deploy the entire application, not just the React or the HTML, but you had to release everything. That weighed in on the decision. Do we really want to make this change? Do we want to take that risk and deploy this whole thing again? Where today, if you break apart your front end, it's headless. Great. You can make that change. Those are really quick, right? You can push those on a nightly basis. Testing's a lot easier for that. So really what it allows you to do is break out and reduce the risk based on just the areas that you're planning on deploying or making changes to.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, we would roll out something, it wouldn't be compatible with something else, the whole site would go down. Oh gosh, what's a disaster. I mean, Adrienne, you've lived, you're a developer, right? In your history, you've lived this stuff. What's your thought? Is this new sort of framework of foundation, is it better for decision making and make it faster?
Sorry, were you asking me or Nathan?
Oh, you. Well, whoever.
Sorry. This absolutely does help, and it allows us to. I just remember the long nights when we would be making some small change, but now we're deploying the new code, and we have to regression test every single thing on the site, even though we didn't touch the code. For example, for where they save their address book or something, we've got to test every possible scenario, and to be able to compartmentalize, I can't say it either, and really just focus on the code set for what it is we're looking at change. That's huge.
That is huge. Nathan, what about from your side? I mean, you're looking at all this stuff. What's been your experience on where we are today versus where we've been with Technology Foundation?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I've been the business guy for the whole time, right? So I think for me, it's been more mired in how quickly can we get something done? How fast can we do it? How effective is it? Understanding and working well enough within the IT space, the design space, the development space, helps a ton, right? Because then you can just you can kind of bridge those kind of commonalities. But for me on the business side, it really has just been more about how effective can we be, to really just make sure that we're getting out the feature or the new item or the optimization that we need to. So probably have a little bit less of a technical expertise there.
Yeah. Well, I remember back in the day, I've always been on the business side too, Nathan. So I can sympathize because it can be very complex, particularly now with more and more technology rolling out, more options, to help the IT side, to help the organization prioritize. What as we wrap up here in a couple of minutes, I want to talk a little bit about the decisioning framework, right? So as you think about, if you guys were new to a company, or if you were talking to someone who was new in role at whether that's an SVP marketing, a head of IT, or a VP of e-commerce, at a B2B company, what would you suggest in terms of what's a piece of advice you would have for them in terms of looking at and deciding what the priorities are and making decisions around those priorities? Any thoughts or what advice would you give if you were talking to that person?
Yeah, I think for me, it's, accept what technology is going to bring you, right?
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, like this world of AI right now, it's overtaking us in so many different ways, and a lot of it's really good, right? But it's like how, understand how that works and understand how that impacts your role in a good way, right? How does it impact the customer experience? And so how do we start to think about doing things a little bit differently, a little bit faster? All while trying to just make sure we're still kind of doing our day job. So I think for me, it's really just, accepting kind of what's out there, and take the time to learn and take the time to have some opportunities out there that may be a little bit different.
What about you, Adrienne?
Well, one of the first things I would say is really having control over everything that your area is mismanaging. And part of that, is Nathan alluded to this earlier, is having your own technology team as part of the e-commerce team. This is a change I made more than a decade ago, and it's really allowed us to be much more nimble with our ability to implement new features and functionality, doing our own prioritization without necessarily having to fight over other resource prioritizations. But then ultimately, in terms of decision making, it's having that end goal in mind. Is the primary thing you and your team are evaluated on the dollars of sales that you bring in, the percentage of customers brought over? Is it acquisition? Really, what is the ultimate goal? And to the end that every decision you're weighing up against the others facilitates getting to that goal. That helps with the overall rating process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. We spend a lot of time talking about North Star, right? Like what it is and kind of how to get to it. I think if you always have that in your mind and in your brain, it's like every decision, if you're getting to that point or trying to reach that kind of, for now, end result, it makes things a lot easier, and it makes the decisions easier, and it makes the conversations, right? So I think if you're thinking through that in the right way, it can go. I think it works really well. So that's a great point, Andrew.
Awesome. And Brian, what about you? I mean, any thoughts to wrap us up here on this point? What advice would you give, or do you give when you walk into a new environment where someone's getting started here as a leader, in terms of decision making and prioritizing?
So I'll piggyback a little bit off of Nathan and Adrienne. That is absolutely know your KPIs. What is the objective? What is the North Star that you're trying to accomplish within the next 6 months or year? There's short-term goals and long-term goals. But then I'll end that with, though, there's a term of you have to audit your time to data. Because if you want to meet those KPIs, make sure you're getting the data needed in a timely manner. because if it takes you 2 months or 2 weeks or even sometimes 2 days to pull data or pull a report to make a decision based on meeting those KPIs or meeting those goals, that's a problem. So make sure you have the analytics. I know, data does lie sometimes, but you have to have the ability to pull that data to make decisions quickly to meet those KPIs and make sure the data you're pulling is specifically for those KPIs.
Yeah, that's a good point on data, and I think that's a great way to wrap our session up today, Brian. Because data is one of those things that can get you if you're not in as Adrienne will test to, right? If it's not sound data and you don't have the analytics, so starting there to really understand the landscape of what you're dealing with is I think a great point. Well, folks, thank you all for joining us today. I want to thank Adrienne, Nathan, and Brian. Really fantastic input into this topic. And wish you all the best in your endeavors in planning and decision making. What you shared today has been very valuable. So thank you, and thank you everyone for joining our Fireside Chat with Master B2B. We'll see you next time.